Ever wonder what happens when you try and charge an unsafe LiPo? Well, here, this is an unsafe LiPo, this is a charger, and this is what happens. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, how to safely charge and dispose of LiPo batteries, and then finally we'll come right back here to see how this fire actually happened in the first place. So this is your LiPo battery, or maybe even this is your LiPo battery, or take it a step further, maybe this is your LiPo battery. Look, these are all completely different sizes of LiPo batteries, and you could have any one of them. The cool thing here though is that as long as you know the basics, you're going to be able to understand any shape, any size, or any color of LiPo that you find. Let's just grab this bigger one here for the example of today's video. You're going to see that it's got this big number followed by the letters MAH, a smaller number with a C, an even smaller number with an S, another with a V, and then the last one with a WH. Let's start off in the middle with the most important number that's got an S next to it. This is how many cells your battery has got inside of it. Think of a cell like a mini battery inside of your battery. Each of them are connected in what's called series, basically meaning that all of the cells' power is added up with one another. So a 1S battery like this one here has only got one singular cell. A 4S battery has got 4 cells, and then a 6S battery like this one has got 6 cells. Next, let's run over what that little V number means. The V stands for voltage, which pretty much tells you how fast your drone is going to go. The higher the voltage, the faster the motors will spin. Now we've just figured out that the mini batteries inside your complete battery, the cells, get added together to get more power. That means that the voltage and the S rating are linked together. The more cells you have, the more voltage you'll have, meaning more power. But if each cell adds power to your battery, then how much voltage does each small battery cell have? The resting voltage of one singular LiPo cell is 3.7 volts. That's not what the voltage is when it's fully charged, and it's also not what the voltage is when it's fully discharged. It simply is about in the middle of the two. We will go through what the correct voltage is for a charged and discharged LiPo soon, but for now, if we take that resting voltage of 3.7 volts per cell and add each of the cells together, we reach that V number here. So on my 6S battery here, if I add 3.7 volts for every cell I have together, which is 6, we reach 22.2. If you have a 4-cell battery like this one here, you would only add 3.7 together 4 times, making it 14.8 volts. That's how we reach that V number. Both of these are normal LiPo batteries, but there is, however, the exception of LiPo batteries that have got HV next to their voltage number. What the HV stands for is high voltage, which means each of the cells inside are rated to be able to charge higher than a normal LiPo battery. But we'll get to this with the charging side of things later in the video. It's just worth noting now if you're wondering why the voltage might be different to the calculations we just made, if what you have right now in front of you is a high voltage battery. How about this big number here with the MAH? The MAH stands for milliamp hours, which tells us what capacity the battery is. The bigger this number, the more charge your battery can hold, generally meaning the longer you'll be able to fly your drone on one battery. It's basically like a fuel tank. Bigger number, more fuel, smaller number, less fuel. Something we will need to know how to do soon as well is turn the milliamp hours into amp hours. To do this, simply divide your milliamp hour number by 1000. So for me here with this 1500 milliamp hour battery, if I wanted to work out what the capacity is in amp hours, not milliamp hours, I would divide 1500 by 1000, giving me a result of 1.5 amp hours. If you had a 750 milliamp hour battery, divide that by 1000, you would have 0.75 amp hours. What amp hours and milliamp hours tell us is how much power the battery could constantly put out for 1 hour. So my 1500 milliamp hour battery could, in theory, put out 1500 milliamps, also known as 1.5 amps, for 1 hour straight. I say in theory because realistically, you will never use the complete capacity of the battery, as it's more than likely to damage it. Anyway, you'll see how this all becomes useful very shortly. The fourth number to understand here is the C number, or C rating. So far, the voltage and capacity aspects have both been fairly easy to understand, as they both have a direct impact on the drone. So C rating can be a tad harder to understand, but I'll keep it as simple as possible for you. The C rating here simply stands for how fast you can discharge the battery safely. How fast can your battery deliver power to your drone? If you think about the fuel tank example that we used before, think about the C rating as how big of a hole you have to get the fuel out of the tank. The bigger the hole, the faster you can drain the fuel, which for us would mean a higher C rating. Whereas the smaller the hole, the slower you'd be able to drain the fuel tank, meaning a lower C rating. Now, to figure out what the C rating actually means to us, we need to turn it into amps. By doing this, we're figuring out how many amps the battery can deliver to your drone continuously without damaging itself. If we go back to turning our capacity from milliamp hours to amp hours, and we take that amp hour number, so for this battery 1.5 amp hours, we can then multiply our amp hour number with our C rating to figure out how many amps our battery can continuously deliver to our drone. So for me, that'll be 1.5 amps times 100 C rating equals 150 continuous amps. But the important note here is that because 100 C is the same as 150 amps for this battery, that would make 1 C the same as 1.5 amps. Get it? 1 C is 1.5 amps, 2 C would be 3 amps, 3C would be 4.5 amps, and that's how 100C is 150 amps. We'll be using this knowledge to select our charging rate shortly, so try your best to wrap your head around it, and if you need to, watch that little section again. It's pretty important. The fifth and final number on your battery is followed by a W and H. These stand for watt hours. I'm not going to go into detail here about what they are or how to calculate them. However, it's important to note that this is the number that airlines use to figure out if you're able to bring your battery on their plane or not. Many airlines allow up to 100 watt-hour batteries, but anything over that could be prohibited. So it's just useful to know so that if you do plan on traveling with batteries, you know what to check online and where to find that rating on your battery. Mine on the 6S is 33.3 watt hours, so in theory, it should be allowed on an airline. Okay, so that's a ton of maths and a lot to take in. I'm going to run through a quick recap on what the most important takeaways are from all that, so you know what you'll need to continue on with this video. Firstly, the S rating. This is the number of cells inside of your battery and relates to how much power you'll be able to supply your drone with. Secondly, the voltage. This is the number that is the result of each cell's voltage added together, and remembering each cell has a resting voltage of 3.7 volts. Thirdly, the capacity. This is the big number with milliamp hours and tells you how much fuel you have to give your drone. It can be easily converted into amp hours by dividing it by 1000. Fourthly, the C rating. This is how fast your battery can discharge safely and can be converted to amp draw by multiplying your capacity in amp hours with the C rating. Fifth, and finally, this is the number used by airlines to tell you if your battery is allowed on the plane or not. I actually sent an email out to my FPV newsletter just last week helping over 100 other pilots understand how to safely store, charge, and dispose of LiPo batteries, so they kind of got this early, and if you want to join them, there is a link in the description down below. But with that all being said, let's cover it here as well so you aren't missing out on any crucial charging information. The first thing is to take a step back from the batteries themselves and actually find yourself a quality charger with a safe charging environment. A quality charger is going to be subjective on who you talk to, but for me, it's this little guy. It's got a balance lead port, an XT60 port here, and also a screen that shows me each of the individual cells, which is a super important feature. A safe charging environment, however, is just as crucial as the charger, and the word environment actually comes down to a few factors. Are you keeping an eye on the charger? Is the charger near flammable objects or surfaces? And how healthy is your battery? Think of it like a three-way risk management pendulum. If you plan on leaving your charger unattended, your physical environment and battery health need to be excellent. If you plan on charging on a flammable surface, you need to be there with the charger, and your battery health also needs to be excellent. Finally, if your battery health is terrible, you'll need to make sure your eyes are glued to that charger and your physical charging environment is excellent. They each affect one another in terms of risk management, and honestly, in a perfect world, you'd have all three bars sitting at excellent all the time. That means you're there watching the charger, you're charging in a non-flammable area, and you know your battery health is great. The lower each of these bars are from excellent, the higher your risk factor is, and we want to minimize that as much as possible. Okay, so now that you know how and where you should be charging, let's move on to the actual charging side of things. On your battery, you're going to have a balance lead and you're going to have a main XT60 cable. Now, on smaller batteries, you may indeed have a smaller balance lead and also a smaller XT cable. Now, this is an XT30, this is an XT60. All that is in relation to is their size difference. There's also a slight size difference between each of our balance leads. This is 4 cells, this is 6 cells. So I'll put the 4-cell battery away for now. We're going to work on the 6-cell battery here. Now, what you want to do is you want to plug in, obviously, your XT60 connector. That's telling this entire, that's telling your charger right now that there is one battery connected to it. And then this We plug our balance lead here in. Now we're telling our charger that we have got 6 individual cells inside of this, and you can see it's automatically selected on the charger that we indeed have 6 cells. Some chargers won't automatically select this, so we're going to come to our charge screen. We've got a few options. The first is obviously we're going to come in and we're going to hit charge. That's our main thing right now. Next one is what type of battery is it? We are not charging any of the others aside from a LiPo right now. The condition is 4.2 volts. That's telling you how much it should charge each of these up to. We've already worked that one out for this pack, is that it is 4.2 volts. If it's a high voltage pack, you can click in there and you can charge up to a little bit higher, but majority of packs will go only up to 4.2 volts. If you go any higher than that, then you're going to start risking fires because these batteries are not rated to go higher. Now I already mentioned that this charger has automatically selected a 6S battery. If however your one hasn't, you come here, this is 6S, we already worked out by the S there, so 6S. If I plug this battery in, we'd be charging a 4S battery. So 6S, and then we come down to the current. Now the current is how fast it's charging this battery. And this is where the C rating comes in. So we already know that 100 C is equal to 150 amps. So what does that mean that 1 C is? Well, 1 C is 1.5 amps. And we only want to charge at 1 C. Now, the reason you don't want to charge at 1 C is because it's the safest way to charge. It's the safest speed. You're not pumping a whole bunch of amps into your battery, which is what we want. We only want a certain amount. Sometimes you're going to find that people charge at 2C, which for this battery would be 1.5 plus 1.5 amps. So we're at 3 amps. So 2C on this battery is 3 amps. So if we really wanted to, I could come all the way down. There we go. And go 3 amps, and I'll charge it at 3 amps. Now, that is more risky than sticking with 1.5 amps and charging at 1C. So for the majority of your times charging, I recommend only charging at 1C. It's going to take more or less an hour, but I promise you it is the safest route to take. So please, if you have the option, always go for 1C, or even potentially lower if you really want to. So after that, you can hit start. We're going to come up with starting, and now we've got each of our individual cells here all charging up, and our charger is telling us, yay, great, everything is balanced out here, and we're balancing it as we're charging. Now if I come down, we're going to actually see this other screen, and this is resistance. Now the resistance of each of these individual little cells here is basically telling us, in a way, how healthy each of the cells are. So for me, all of these numbers are fairly similar. Cell number 5 does appear to be slightly damaged, and that can just be from being hit, but it's nothing drastic. Right now everything's sitting at 12 ohms of resistance, 13, 11.9, 13, 9.3. So they're all pretty much the same resistance, meaning they're all being charged at the same rate with the same ease of charge. Generally speaking, a brand new battery is going to have 5 to 15 milliohms of resistance straight out the box. That's a very general number, but that's around about where it's going to sit. A used battery is probably going to be somewhere more around the 15 to 20 milliohms mark. And then once one of your cells starts to reach a 20 to 25 milliohm resistance, that's when you're going to want to start thinking about looking at getting a new battery. And anything that's upwards of 25 milliohms, I'm going to recommend that you retire that battery. That's not a great place to be. It's worth saying here too that there are actually a couple of other ways that you can assess whether your battery is in good health or bad health. These are the main ones that I'm going to recommend that you try. Firstly, can you smell a fruity or a sweet smell? If yes, then it probably means that you've punctured one or more of the cells in your battery, meaning that the chemicals are escaping out and that's what you can actually smell. Secondly, is your battery super puffy? If yes, then this is probably a great point in time to take it as a great warning sign and always keep a super heavy eye on your battery while it's charging. Thirdly, does your battery get hot while charging? If this is a yes and you're charging at the recommended 1C rate, then that's probably a really good point in time to take a look at the resistance of each cell and see if one or more of them are higher. If that is the case, then well, maybe that cell is not too good. It's always good practice to just consistently be assessing your batteries pretty much on every single charge, and if you crash badly, then go and check your battery, smell it, make sure that it's actually okay, and that you're not going to be trying to fly something that's got a punctured cell. And on the flip side of that, if you happen to notice that any of these signs do become apparent with one or more of your batteries, just make sure that you're keeping a super close eye on that particular battery whilst it's charging. You should be keeping an eye on your batteries at all points in time while charging, but just really pay attention. Now, if I put that battery aside for a moment and I actually bring in this battery, this is a really bad battery. Now look, they actually don't look too bad, like too different, right? They look fairly similar. What you are going to notice, however, is that this battery has actually got a little bit of brown tint to this cell. Now, that cell is, as you're going to find out in a second, completely and utterly dead. So if I plug in the balance charger here, the balance lead, we're going to be able to see we've only got 5 cells showing up and at 19.1 volts. Cell number 4, which is the brown burnt one, is indeed a dead cell. So all these others are at 3.8, 3.8, 3.8, 3.8, 3.8. They're fine. Cell number 4 does not exist right now. So that means that this battery should not be charged. Instead, this battery needs to be disposed of, and I'll be buying a new battery. You might now be wondering, well, great, how the heck am I supposed to get rid of a battery if it's just gonna catch fire in my bin? Well, it's really quite simple. The best route to take is with the use of a proprietary slow discharger. This little guy for my flight cost me $2 and will take a few days to bring the voltage down to 0. Once it's totally discharged, I'd pop the balance lead into my charger to make sure there's no cells that have charge in it, and then I'd take it to a local hobby shop or a recycling center so they can be recycled properly. Again, I did cover all of this in my newsletter last week, and I actually sent out a PDF guide that you can stick next to your charger to make sure that you know all the things to remember. If you want that PDF, I've left a separate link down in the description below. It's totally free. However, for the purpose of this video, I've intentionally gone against everything to make sure that we end up with a fired result, which is what we want. So let's rewind time and watch how this battery disaster unfolded from the start. Alright, so first up, this is definitely our bad battery, and we can check that by plugging in our balance lead. So if we plug it in, you can actually see there that there is no 4th cell visible. It's probably safe to say that this battery's 4th cell is completely screwed and means you should never charge it. So we're going to charge it. Now, I want to make it extremely clear here. I am not recommending that you do any of this to any of your LiPo batteries. This entire experiment is solely to show you the true power that is stored inside of one of these compact packs. Anyways, I hit start and waited for the battery to overcharge up, but even after 90 minutes of overcharging, it still appeared that we've not had any signs of a bad battery. Well, we've not had any signs of a battery that's about to explode. So that's good, we'll just wait. Let's take a seat. We waited for yet another 30 minutes, still not experiencing any of the signs of a battery about to go, like smelling a sweet smell, swelling of a cell, and well, I didn't actually want to put my hand anywhere near it, so I have no idea if it got hot, but it was really starting to play games with my mind. Right now, the 5 cells that are active in there are at 5.4 volts. Keep in mind, the maximum you want to charge your LiPo to is 4.2 volts per cell. And we're now at 5.4 per cell. I'm a little nervous. I don't know about the surroundings. At the same time, I also do like my household. But I also want to demonstrate the dangers of the fire to you guys. So, this is my house.
We're going to be using it as an example of what could happen if you charge one of these batteries.
Yeah, no, we are definitely not doing that. But I won't lie, after waiting for nearly 2 hours, my nerves were starting to reach a peak. I had no idea how big this fire was going to be. I had no idea how much longer it was going to take, and I started to have serious second thoughts about doing this experiment altogether. What if a cell flies out of the box? Could my house catch on fire? What if the flames are 5 meters tall and the fire brigade gets one of my neighbors? Who can charge? Ghostbusters? Oh, fuck this, man. I actually can't handle the stress anymore. Nah, fuck it. So yeah, I hit it with a very sharp spade, and to be quite honest here, I was super disappointed at the result. I think we only got one.
What?
One cell. All I could hope for was that I had indeed only punctured one single cell, meaning that we would still have at least 4 more charged up cells to be able to demonstrate this with. Look, all it took was a few more cell punches to really highlight the dangers of what a LiPo can do. But before you start thinking, well, I'm not going to have mine with a spade, so this is never going to happen to me, you aren't quite on the right track there. If one or more of your cells in any given LiPo do wear out enough and become a hazard, this sort of fire can 100% occur while charging without any external things like a spade. I mean, check out the cell just erupting into flames after it got too hot from the cell next to it burning. The fire burst may look short, but the amount of heat they put off in that short period is more than enough to catch anything flammable around it on fire. Looking back, it is truly amazing to see the power that each individual cell stores inside of it, but it's also a fierce reminder of what could happen if you find yourself getting complacent with LiPo batteries. So I hope that you now have an understanding of the true dangers of LiPo batteries and just how bad it actually can get. I mean, check out the battery lead here, that's not much of a battery anymore. To be honest with you though, I actually used to neglect safe charging for the longest time while getting started, and I used to use a 4-button charger. However, it's not the only regrets that I've made in the FPV drone hobby, so if you want to go and watch that video with all of my regrets, you can check that one out right here. We'll see you soon.